briefing session for the work program, the R&I work program of 2024. My name is Alex Kaloxilos. I'm the Executive Director of the SIX Industry Association. I will be acting as your host today. Of course, the briefing session is a joint event organized by the SNS JU Office, DG Connect, and the SIX Industry Association. I would like to remind you all that the session is being recorded, so that you are aware that the session is recorded and will be shared after the completion of the event, together with the slides, of course, of the presentation. And this is the agenda, and I see that people are still joining. First of all, we will have the welcome from Dr. Wilcock. He is, for those of you, which I doubt that there are people that do not know you, Colin, he's the chairman of the board of the SIX Industry Association and the vice chairman of the SNS JU Governing Board. After this presentation and the welcome, we will have Agustin Diaz-Pines, who is the deputy head of Unit E1 at DG Connect, setting up the policy context and orientations of the work program. Then I will be providing some information about the technical content of the R&I Work Program 2024. And finally, Pavlos Fournogerakis, he's the SNS JU Deputy Head of Programs. He will be providing information about the organization and the conditions of the calls. And at the end, hopefully, we're going to have a Q&A session. So please use the chat to ask your questions. We will try to answer them all. If this is not going to be possible, rest assured that all your questions will be answered in the frequently asked questions that the SNS JU office every year is preparing for the calls. And with that, I would like to give the floor to Colin to open the presentation.
Thank you, Alex, and welcome everyone. So it's great to see so many interested parties at this briefing. And I don't want to hold you up too much, but I just want to make sort of two key points, I suppose, before we go into the technical details of the new work program. And I think the first point I'd like to make is that it's been a major effort involving many people creating this work program. So I just wanted to have one or two slides just showing some of the input, some of the people involved, and sort of thank people like Alex, people like Didier who have been involved, together with many others in the team that's been building it, and indeed the Smart Network and Services JU Office and the European Commission side. It's been a very intense, very extreme preparation process. So it's taken nearly 10 months to put this work program together. There's been over 100 individual meetings to make that happen. In the box on the top left-hand corner, you can see some of the levels of collaboration, some of the people involved in discussing this work program. And it goes all the way from the SRG, the representatives of the member states, standardization bodies, vertical stakeholders, national initiatives, and of course, SNS stakeholders groups. So we've got many organizations and individuals that have fed into this work program to try and make sure that we have the right work program for Europe. And obviously one needs to remember to mention Network Europe and the SRIA, which is the starting point for this process. So excellent work done by that organization with over 1,000 individual participants there, feeding in to try and build, if you will, a roadmap for what the future technologies will be. And based on that, together with consultations with members of the 6GIA and looking at analysis of the past calls to see where there are gaps and weaknesses, we have put this work program together that we'll be presenting today. So on the other point to make is one needs to see this work program not just in isolation. So what we try to do is, rather than have silo thinking, well, Smart Network and Services is a world in its own right. What we've been doing is we've been talking to other joint undertakings, other related areas, and trying to make sure that we're aligned with those. So things like the CHIPS Act that are going on. So in the microelectronics thing, photonics, rail, and we are looking and talking with the AI, data and robotics, high performance computing and CCAN. So we're trying to make sure that we have an integrated idea or vision for the future, and that the work programs from our JU, but also the other JUs, will link together into a jigsaw that will provide a coherent map for the future. Moving to the next slide, the last point I really want to make is that we are obviously also not in a vacuum in terms of we're talking about call 3 today, but we should also be aware that we've had call 1 and call 2, and that these in many ways have been very successful. Unfortunately, in 5 minutes, I can't go into detail of these pie graphs. These give some flavor or overview for the areas that have been funding, the vertical industries being involved, the participants and where they are coming from. And this is all very interesting, but maybe that will be needed for a different presentation. But if I go on to my last slide here, I think I'd just like to pick out a few key points which I can mention, and that is the high SME participation. This was always one of the key things we wanted to see. So in the first call, we got 18%. In the call 2, we got nearly 25% participation from SMEs. This is clearly important as we're trying to build the new champions for the future in Europe. And beyond that, because we have some open calls being organized in streams C and D in the platforms, we're expecting that number to increase as SMEs come through that cascade funding, that open calls. What is also excellent is the coverage of vertical industries, the coverage of non-telecoms industries. Now, we achieved a good coverage in the 5G world in 5GPP, but they came on rather late. They came out in phase 2. So in other words, we first developed the technology, and then we started talking with these other industries. What we can see in smart network and services, which I believe is a major step forward, is even in the first call, even at the very beginning of the 6G story, we have many verticals directly involved. They're prepared to invest time and energy to actually discuss what 6G should be. And that bodes well for providing the right solutions, not just for telecoms, but for all these parallel industries going forward. And equally, we've seen when we've done the analysis, no major gaps in terms of those work programs and what's been implemented. Okay, I'm afraid that's all I have time for in terms of that analysis, but the key messages were that we have done a lot of preparation for this work program, which is about to be presented. We believe it's good for Europe, and call 1 and 2 have also made a good foundation, which we can now build on. Thank you very much for the time. I hand back to the moderator, Alex. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Colin, and thank you very much for your presentation. Let's move on to Agustin Diaz-Pinez. He is going to provide some insights about the policy context and the orientation for the work program. Agustin, the floor is yours. Please let me know if you want me to keep on sharing the slides. Okay, so you have the control. Thank you. Agustin, you have the floor. Can you hear us? Agustin, we cannot hear you.
He's still muted.
Oh, hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, yeah, now we can hear you perfectly, sir.
Sorry about that.
Is it better if Alex shares the slides for you, or?
I was sharing them already.
It was fine, but they've disappeared.
Alex can share them. Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. I will do so. And I think that you now can see the slides. The floor is yours, Agustin. Let's go to the first slide. Okay.
Yes, I will. Let me thank you, Alex and Colin, and thanks to all the participants for joining us today. I will now provide a short overview of the policy context of this work program and of the SNS joint undertaking. This work program and the SNS joint undertaking fall under the Digital Decade Vision and Targets that the European Commission published 2 years ago. And this is the vision for 2013. As you can see, there are 4 cardinal points for the twin transition, for the digital policy of Europe. Skills, government services, business uptake, and infrastructures. One of the goals of the infrastructure cardinal point is to provide gigabit connectivity for everyone and 5G coverage in all populated areas. And so in this 5G and future 6G is where the work of the SNS JU, of this work program, is relevant. There are several initiatives and programs to develop and to 5G and 6G, and also to help in the deployment. But the aim, next slide, please. The aim of the joint undertaking for 6G smart networks and services is to facilitate and develop industrial leadership in Europe for 5G and 6G by 2030. And as you can see, there are a number of enablers, technology enablers that have to be there in order to develop 6G, such as native AI, cybersecurity, cloudification, and advanced radio access, and so forth. And the strategy foresees certain drivers and certain expected results for this joint undertaking. In particular, technology leadership and competitiveness of the industry by defining a set of KPIs and KVIs for 6G networks. There are also 2 aspects that I wanted to underline here. The first one is the application to verticals. I mean, we see 6G as having a different flavor and different applications for verticals, and therefore a strong focus is put on engaging with these verticals and developing solutions, 6G solutions for these different verticals. And the second one is international cooperation, especially in view of standardization. International collaboration has a big emphasis for this JU, both through projects and for broader engagement, with a view to global standardization process for 6G. Next slide, please. The 6G SNS JU has 2 main pillars. One is about accelerating 5G deployment, also through the Connecting Europe facility. And the second one is the 6G vision and research and innovation. And this is the focus of today's session, this funding and research and innovation part. As you know, the SNS JU was established by the Council regulation 2 years ago, and there are 900 million of European Commission funding in this period to be at least matched by the industry. On the 5G angle, 5G deployment angle, the 6G JU provides strategic guidance to develop the strategic deployment agendas for 5G, for the corridors, for road and rail. Next slide, please. Now let me explain a little bit the governance of the SNS JU. As you see, the decision making and the broader roadmap and strategic orientations are taken by the governing board, where both the European Commission and the 6G AA Association are represented with equal voting rights. There, the member states are part of the states representative group, which ensure synergies and a coordinated approach, and also are consulted for strategic guidance, and they ensure coordination with other initiatives for piloting and deployment. There's also the stakeholders group, where broader synergies with other partnerships and associations are ensured, and this is an advisory body. And then, as I mentioned before, international partnerships play a very important role through projects and through bilateral engagement with countries with relevant 6G activities, such as the US, Japan, or Korea, that are part of this work program. Next slide, please. And here you can see the SNS JU roadmap. This work from 2021 to 2030 is structured in several phases. Now we are under phase 2, And the main highlight of this phase is that we are aiming at pre-standardization of 6G technologies. We're no longer at exploration of 6G, but not yet at full 6G system. But given in the point in time where we are in the standardization process, the projects and this call has a strong focus on pre-standardization of 6G technology. Next slide, please. And let me finish my presentation by mentioning, as I shortly did before, the other pillar of the SNS JU. This is the 5G deployment through the 5G corridors for road, rail, and waterways. And this is part of the CEF digital calls. There is a call open, call 3, open until end of February. Call 1 and projects were launched earlier this year, and call 2 projects were just been announced and will be launched in 2024. This 5G corridors work is in conjunction with further funding, such as from RRF or other national programs. But this, as I mentioned, is an important, it is the other pillar of the SNS JU work. And with that, I will hand over to Alex and for further details on the conditions of this work program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Agustin, and thank you for being on time. So we can move on to the next presentation. And here I have to say the following. As you may have noticed, today's presentation is called SNS Briefing. And this is because this is the first of the events that we have planned. There's going to be a dedicated information day. This will take place on the 22nd of January. You are going to receive information. So please keep on visiting the SNS JU office website. Let me start. I will try to, I know that you have already read the work program. Actually, that was the target. The target was this year to be able to have a pre-release of the work program as soon as possible. So many thanks to all the people involved in these activities, as Colin has mentioned in the beginning, from the public and the private side. I will try to provide to you the summary and the key points, at least as I perceive them, about this new work program for 2024. So if I wanted to summarize the top level priorities for this new work program, the first one is that there is a continuity from the topics, especially for Stream B, that we had in 2022 and 2023. So it's not that we start from scratch, but there is a continuity. And of course, the target now, as this is the third call, is to target for a higher TRL, having something like a proof of concept or some very specific impact in the standardization process for 6G networks. Another key point in the work program for 2024 is the sustainability lighthouse in Stream B. Sustainability is a key point in the SNS JU, and that's why we have a dedicated call for proposal for this year, but also, as you may have noticed, in Stream D, where we have the large-scale trials and pilots, the expected outcome should provide some tangible results in terms of sustainability, because everybody's talking about sustainability, but it would be really nice to see what these sustainability gains will be. And I will elaborate a bit later on. An additional key point for 2024, in Stream C, there is the microelectronics lighthouse. In Stream C, we have all the experimental infrastructure. There are a lot of activities that we would like to see being done in this area, and especially things that we will be linking the SNS community with the CHIPS JU community. There is another project dedicated for AI, so it's called Reliable AI for 6G, dealing with a research topic, but also with methodologies about how to use AI and validate the results that AI may offer. There is the flavor of international collaboration, so we continue. Last year it was with the United States of America, this year is with Japan and the Republic of Korea. And finally, another innovation is the synergy with the EU rail in the context of Stream D. Now, as you may all know, we don't have any longer Stream A, that's old news, because Stream A was mainly focusing on 5G advanced, and now we focus only on 6G. In Stream B, we have the same structure, meaning architecture, wireless communication, 6G communication infrastructure and security and service provision. These are 4 strands, as we call them. They are present even in 2024. What you see here is the presentation about the system architecture, where again we have a number of topics. These are essentially a summarized version of the scope of the work program for the system architecture. And you see that we have 5 bullets of topics, including new design approaches for 6G, the system architecture, the use of natively AI in the telecommunication networks, the exposure of the network capabilities to the vertical applications, new data transfer paradigms, and the digital network twinning for 6G. Now, I would like to focus on mainly 2 things. The first one is that proponents may select 1 or more topics, so it's up to the proponents if they want to select 1 or more topics and combine these things. And the second point that I would like to focus is the TRL. I was explaining before that one of the targets of this work program was to target for higher TRLs, and indeed this is the case, or this is what we try to do. Now, for these strands, you will see a rather complex definition, which I will try to clarify. The starting point for this strand is TRL 2 to 3, and the target is to reach TRL 4. There could be cases where mature 6G technologies and solutions could be used for verticals. In this case, targeting TRL 5 would be also in scope. At the same time, we are a bit flexible, saying that indeed for some of these topics, where research activities global-wise are in the start, even TRL 3 could be acceptable. But trying to put it as simple as possible, the key target is TRL 5. If you target to use these technologies to verticals, so it's a mature 6G technology, you can target even TRL 5. And if this is something extremely innovative, then TRL 3 could be also acceptable. So it's up to you. The main target is TRL 4, but again, you have this room for haggling between TRL 3 and TRL 5. New topics, TRL 3, and application of 6G solutions to verticals for TRL 5. Now, going to wireless communication and signal processing, again, I have to say also, apologies for going back. In this case, the idea is to have 2 large projects, so trying to have some impact. So there is a slight change from the previous year where we had a considerably more number of projects of smaller budget. Here, the target is to have something impactful. These decisions have been taken after extensive consultation with a lot of people. Now, topic-wise, again, you can select 1 or more. The topics are integrated sensing and communication, machine learning for the physical layer, self-free architectures for the RAN, as well as extreme exploitation of massive MIMO, including RIS, key functionalities and technologies to further develop 6G RAN system design, and seamless integration of multiple frequency bands. The idea here is again for the TRL, as I have explained, for the first strand. It's equally the same for the second strand. Then we can go to the third strand, 2 projects. Again, you can select 1 or more of these topics, where in principle they are related to either optical communication, satellite communication, IoT, or low energy communication solution, including short range communication. The TRL is exactly as I have explained before. And then we go to the reliable services and smart security. And here we have a number of topics related to the use of AI and machine learning for 6G infrastructures and how this can be used to provide new services. A number of topics related to trustworthy service provision, enablers for security and privacy, zero touch, integrated security deployment, the integration of secured 6G communication via quantum key distribution and post-quantum cryptography support, and time-sensitive and responsive software and hardware technologies for the provision of services in a multi-stakeholder, multi-system environment. Again, 2 projects, and the TRL is as I have mentioned before. Now, there are 2 collaboration projects this year, each one 3 million euros. One project with Japan, and here the focus is on RAN and the use of AI. in terms of how to make the distributed MIMO feasible and efficient, how to have a user-centric network implementation, how AI and machine learning can play a key improvement in reconfigurable surfaces, and how some integrated core network and RAN network functions can be enabled by AI and be more efficient. One of the target of this project is to have streamlined use between Europe and Japan in the use of AI, potential extensions on the radio interface. So you see that there is some flavor on having some joint impact in standardization activities. And of course, the applicant will be invited to explain how this cooperation is going to be implemented. Why? Because we are going to have this project, this call for projects in Europe, and there's going to be a parallel call for projects in Japan. And these two projects, although they are not joined, they will have to work together. So proponents need to consider that they have to allocate resources for this collaboration with their sibling project in Japan. The similar philosophy of having a parallel project is taking place with Korea. Again, these are not joint calls, these are parallel calls, one in Europe and one in the Republic of Korea. Here the focus is, the area is similar to the one in Japan, so it has to do about 6G RAN and the use of AI. The topics are slightly different in terms of considering efficiencies to be provided by the use of AI in terms of mobility management, resource management, automated maintenance functions, and self-optimization. Again, similar to the call with Japan, the streamlining of the process, of the understanding and the use of AI in Europe and the Republic of Korea is of interest. The interfaces, as it was the case with Japan, and of course any impact that we may have in standardization. The expectation is that for these similar activities, the mirror activities, R&I activities that are going to take place in the Republic of Korea, it would be really nice to focus on the device side, whereas the European side could focus on the network side. And again, of course, the applicants are invited to explain how the EU and Republic of Korea cooperation will be implemented. Moving on, we are still in Stream B. There's going to be one lighthouse project about sustainability. And when we say sustainability, we mean both sustainable 6G networks and 6G for sustainability. So how 6G is going to be used by the verticals, and including all pillars of sustainability: environmental, like energy efficiency; societal sustainability, like inclusiveness; economic sustainability, having solutions that will provide some viable frameworks for those that are going to adopt them, no matter if these are going to be vendors, operators, or vertical industries. It would be nice to have reference sustainability scenarios and benchmark. Of course, a further discussion evolution of KPIs and especially KVIs, something that has started, as you all know, since the era of HXX1. And of course, it would be really great to have impact in standardization in all these topics. Equally important is to have the validation of the critical technologies for sustainability in experimental platforms and use case pilots. So the idea is to have something specific and tangible results by such lighthouse projects on a topic that we all know that it's extremely important for 6G networks. Moving on, we have one project entitled Reliable AI for 6G Communication System and Services. And as I was saying in the opening of my presentation here, there are two goals. The first one is covering some research, pure research and development activities like training, assessment, conflict resolution in case AI is deployed all over the network, from the RAN to the transport to the core. And if these AI mechanisms suggest some solutions that are conflicting between them, then some conflict resolution mechanisms should be taking place. Another point is the vulnerability assessment and how to have reliable and trustable AI full life cycle. At the same time, it's important to have the production of the data sets and validation methodology. So developing a framework on how to create the data sets that are going to be widely accepted, and how to have a validation methodology to help us ensure that the identified gains using AI and machine learning can be duplicated by other researchers. It would be great to have some potential future links to future Stream C and Stream D projects. And of course, the proponents should be considering on having some of the resources for harmonizing their activities with related activities from other SNS projects or even from related projects at national initiatives. Here the TRL, the starting point is 2 to 3, and to reach TRL 4, it's exactly the same as it was in the previous discussion. Now, going to Stream C. In Stream C, there is going to be one project about microelectronics. The main focus is on radio access network computing and communication capabilities, potentially covering from centimeter wave up to terahertz. And as I was mentioning, it would be great to have, this is an opportunity to have a very clear link between the SNS JU and the CHIPS JU. There are 4 main areas for activities. The first one is advanced baseband capabilities, so targeting open approaches, technologies that will deploy joint communication and sensing, hardware platform for the support of virtualization, or even hardware accelerators. The second category is about the integration of the terahertz communication technology into a complete chain and demonstrator, addressing an end-to-end X-hauling demonstrator prototype at sub-terahertz, and inclusion of microelectronic solution in the transport domain, or unified solution with non-terrestrial networks and support of IoT connectivity. Again, here, proponents may select one or more of these issues. And then we go to Stream D, where 2 projects are expected. Key focus is to have tangible results on sustainability. It would be great to see clear benefit in terms for stakeholders, operators, service providers, etc., using and vertical industries, of course, using advanced technology. The tangible results for environmental, societal, and economic aspects of sustainability, as I have mentioned. Like every Stream D project in the past, we are expecting the involvement of SMEs, scale-ups, or startups. And as you know, we have followed a spiral approach evolving from the first call to the later phases. So it would be desirable to have to take advantage of results from SNS Phase 1 Stream C projects. But of course, this is not 100% necessary, depends on the results from the Stream C projects of the SNS Phase 1, but it would be great to have some continuity here. It is open, the Stream D projects, to applicants to select from any of the already advanced 6G use cases that are in line with the 6G vision. This is because, as Colin was saying in the beginning, you have done a great job covering all the verticals already, so there is no specific focus on a specific vertical area in this call. And finally, we have one CSA project, which essentially is going to be the ambassador to the outside world, and at the same time supporting the activities, promotion, communication, collaboration with the member states, initiatives, international collaboration with other JU partnerships and vertical association, and of course the everyday running and support of all the SNS JU working groups, TB, SB, the website, mailing list, and last but not least, the support of EUCNC and 6G Summit organization and support. And with this, I have completed my presentation. I will pass now the floor to Pavlos Fournogerakis, who has some very interesting information about the organization and the condition. And at the same time, I will start checking if there are questions to be handled by the end of the session. Pavlo, the floor is yours. Are you going to see the slides on your own?
Thank you, Alex. I hope you can hear me, and good afternoon, everyone. Before we start my presentation, I would like to remind you that you can post your questions in the chat. For the moment, there are only a few questions that I have tried to answer, but yeah, feel free to post your questions there. That would be very valuable input for us, as we will also include them in the frequently asked questions part. Also, I would like to remind you that this is just a briefing session. So we're here to introduce you the work program. And again, I would like to to thank everyone who is involved in the preparation of this work program for this huge efforts from JU side, but also from the European Commission and the CTIA side. So I will start sharing my slides. And yes, we will share all slides at the end of this briefing session. Okay, so good. Alex, could you please confirm that you can?
Yes, we can. Yes, perfect.
Perfect. Thank you. So in the next 15 minutes, have to be aware of the clock. I would like to guide you through the specific call conditions that we have for the new work program 2024, but also some organizational aspects. Before we start, a few important dates and some important input that is important to take into account for your proposal drafting and for teaming up to draft the SNS proposals. So in terms of opening date, the third call will open on 16th January 2024. And when I mention opening date, I mean that everyone will be able to submit a proposal. We'll have the submission forms will be on the funding and tenders portal, so you can fill and submit the proposals. With a deadline of 18th of April 2024, 5 o'clock Brussels time. It is important that you read the work program that's approved on 23rd November by our governing board. And I provide the links there, and as soon as the slides are available, you can link or you can click along the links and see all the details. Please also note that besides this PDF file, our work program is also available at the Funding and Tenders portal. So you can also access it from the Horizon Europe portal. What I will refer in this presentation, I will mention is mainly the additional conditions of the 2024 call. So I will not go into the details of the standard conditions of the Horizon Europe, but I will focus on what is done in addition to the standard Horizon Europe rules. And there's some important background reading before you ask any questions or you go. I will explain later all the process that you can ask questions. But it is important that you also have a look at the frequently asked questions that it is made available on the SNS JU website. Currently, this is under preparation, so many thanks for your understanding as we have just recently published the work program, but it will be regularly updated with the questions that apply for this call and any new questions that may come from the applicants. In terms of the topics at a glance, Alex has presented all the topics. This is just the overview of what we have. So you can see all the topics presented by Alex, but also the synergy call that we have with EU Rail, and that we will not let's say we will not provide info on this specific work program briefing, as this will be implemented by EU Rail JU. And the relevant work program will be published in the next days. It has been adopted by the governing board, but it will be available in the next days. But we will certainly provide more info in the upcoming info day, which I will present in my presentation afterwards. In terms of funding rates for this call, we will keep the similar model that we had in the last two SNS calls. So for EAS and CSAs, the funding rate will be 100% for not-for-profit organizations and 90% for profit organizations. While for the innovation actions, we will keep the standard Horizon Europe scheme with 100% for non-for-profit organizations and 70% for profit organizations. You see here the the total budget of our call is 129 million euros, including the EU Rail SNS synergy. Next slide. On the call conditions, I would like to remind you that they're based on the general annexes for Horizon Europe call conditions 23-24. So if you want to have a look also, you're free to check the general conditions that are consist the baseline document also for our core conditions. But however, some of the provision of the general annexes have been amended to cover the SNS JU specificities. And this is where you can find in the specific appendix, which is an annex, the appendix to our work program. So these specific SNS conditions cover admissibility, cover eligibility aspects, cover the generation of ICOP, this specific, let's say, term for the JUs, the in-kind contributions to operational activities, and I will explain later what ICOP is about. They also cover SME participation, security provisions for these calls that have gained importance in this third call, and collaboration between projects. I will try to guide you through the details of the specific, let's say, the special conditions that we have in the work program now. So the first one being the admissibility one. Admissibility refers, of course, to readability, to the possibility to print the proposal if you keep the page, the limits. And what is important is that everything, of course, is in line with the Horizon Europe general annexes, but there is a flexible approach regarding the page limit, the page number of the proposal. So we try to keep a flexible approach here in the sense that the limit for a full proposal for research and innovation actions is 100 pages submitted under stream BC, and for the innovation actions submitted under stream D, the limit is also 100 pages. For the CSAs, the limit for a full application is 50 pages for the SNS call. So as you may have already noticed, there's a big difference compared to the standard Horizon Europe rule, where the RIAs and EAs have a limit of 45 pages. And this is intentionally to cover the complexity of the SNS call in terms of all the technological elements that you have to provide. However, it is important to highlight here that applicants are encouraged to modulate the page number of the proposal. So you don't have to provide 100 pages for all the proposals, but for proposals, for example, with low number of partners or covering only one topic, or only a few issues of these specific strands, the streams, you are welcome to modulate between, let's say, an indicative 70 pages up to the maximum 100 pages. And I believe that the 100 pages could be appropriate only for very complex proposals covering multiple technological dimensions, maybe with a large number of partners. So if the proposal is not that complex, you can provide less pages. This is important also. Don't think that if you don't provide 100 pages per proposal, this will have a negative impact on the evaluation. It's exactly the opposite. Sometimes it is important to have concise proposals, avoid repetitions and the redundant text, which is also not very welcome by the evaluators. The next point is about the ICOP, contribution to operational activities. And this is the new notion that I mentioned about. Of course, it's in the previous course, but for someone who is not involved in the EU course, this might be a new term. So what we mean by in-kind contribution to operational activities, I have included the standard definition here in blue color. So you can read it, of course, afterwards. But what practically means is the contribution by private, but not-for-profit members that is not covered by the JU contribution, which is the funding model here. Just an example, if we reimburse a member of the consortium at 70%, a private member of the consortium at 70%, then the 30% of the cost can be considered as private investment and can be considered as ICOP. However, it is important to note that ICOP can only be generated by entities belonging to the so-called member other than the union, which in our case is the 60 Smart Networks and Services Industry association. And of course, you can see that private entities belonging in the 6GIA will naturally generate ICOP due to the reduced funding rate that I mentioned in my previous slides, the 90% for EAS and EAS, and the for EAS and CSAs, and the 70% for innovation actions. This is the table that is also included in the appendix of the work program, and shows in a way the minimum or the indicative ICOP level, and I will explain how we reach there. So the ICOP target at program level for this SNS core is minimum 8 million euros, which let's say represent of the total around 6% of the total funding of 129 million euros. It is important to consider that ICOP is not an eligibility criterion, but it is an evaluation criterion. So there is a specific, let's say, impact sub-criterion in streams B, C, and D concerning ICOP. And this is the extent to which the members of the proposed consortium contribute to the expected level of in-kind contribution to operational activities to help reaching the target additional investments that mentioned before. Also, ICOP is a tool to break the ties between equally marked proposals, so I will not go into the details of that. It is important to fill a mandatory ICOP declaration table in the application form, and we're currently discussing. We will provide the table in the submission forms, but it's important for you to know that it is mandatory to fill this table in part B. And as mentioned before, this table outlines how the ICOP target at program level is converted in minimum indicative values so that we reach our objectives. And this table, of course, I will not go into details how we estimated all these percentages, but we consider past average participation in the previous calls per beneficiary, either profit or not profit, or if they're members of the 6GIA or not. And this created to the targeted objective. So the evaluation of this specific sub-criterion will take into account these minimum values and will be assessed according to these values. Now going on into the eligibility, and eligibility means, of course, what you have to respect to have your proposal evaluated. I will refer only to the specific condition. I will not go to the standard Horizon Europe rules, but that we're all welcome to read in the general annexes. For example, when we say that we need to have at least 3 legal entities independent from each other and each established in a different country and so on and so forth. And also eligibility criteria for countries that can participate in our call. But I would like to focus on the specific eligibility criteria that we have in SNS call. And what we mentioned in the work program in the appendix is that all topics are fully open. Of course, the ICOP incentive applies to all the topics, as mentioned before. But there are 4 topics that are not fully open, and we have a kind of a restriction here mentioned in the table in the appendix. So for the streams B7, B8, so the sustainability lighthouse and the AI topic, at least half of the budget should be implemented by the SNS JU member and their constituent or affiliated entities. So that means by 6GIA. The same is the amount of restriction, let's say, for stream C, the microelectronics lighthouse. So half of the budget should be implemented by 6GIA. And in stream D, the large-scale trials with verticals, 70% of the budget should be implemented by 6GIA members. So all these, let's say, kind of restrictions, not fully open as we call them, are intended to support ICOP generation and to have, of course, the partners' long-term commitment and collaboration with new communities, verticals in the case of T, or new players from microelectronics or AI sectors. So it is very, very important that this commitment is proven in the proposal. A big difference from last year, for the ones that you have already participated in our calls, is that now applicants have to fill a mandatory table of compliance at proposal stage for this specific 4 topics. This will be a dedicated table, maybe combined with HICO, but this is something to consider till we have the final, let's say, version of the forms, of the submission forms. But in any case, it will be a mandatory one that you have to fill so that we can calculate the percentage, and we can assess the eligibility. Please note that if you don't include this table for these specific 4 topics for strands, your proposal will be considered ineligible, as we will not be in the position to assess the participation exactly as mentioned in this the above table. So this is also something very important to take into account for your proposal. Next slide. I know that I have only a few minutes, so I will be very fast on the next one. So in terms of small and medium enterprises, the target for SME participation is at 20% at program level. This was the case also in the previous course, so we managed to reach the objectives, and especially taking into account the financial support of third parties that we had in the previous course, but we're not going to have a STP now in this one. And then, of course, it is very important to take this into account as we have a specific sub-criterion in the award criteria. Now, in terms of security, there is a differentiated approach here because the policy background has evolved since last year. So we have let's say, adopted a more stricter approach in terms of security and sovereignty. So what we see in terms of the security in the Single Basic Act, in the Council regulation that established the SNS JU, is that the implementation of this regulation should introduce appropriate security provisions to reflect these provisions actions in all actions funded in the SNS JU. And this is also in the Single Basic Act, in the Council regulation. There is also Article 170 that mentions about actions involving network elements for large-scale experimentation may follow security scrutiny assessments. However, since the SPA clearly refers to the 5G cybersecurity toolbox, which foresees strategic measures to foster, let's say, a sustainable 5G and supply chain and value chain to avoid long-term dependency, we have to follow all the rules. So there is a recent commission communication on the 5G security toolbox that mentions that in the context of the cybersecurity of 5G networks, certain network suppliers represent higher risks than other 5G suppliers. And on top of that, it says that the Commission intends to reflect this decision in all relevant EU funding programs and instruments, including the SNS JU code. Further to that, Commission adopted recently its strategy to enhance European economic security, referring to a set of risks that are also mentioned in also in our work program. So all of these risks are very relevant to our program, as 5G and 6G security is explicitly mentioned in the context of economic security. And this will lead to some changes in the security approach and security implementation. So we have a new implementation approach where every proposal, streams B, C, and D, and CSA have to fill the security issues table, which is the standard approach in Horizon Europe. However, all streams now, proposals B, C, and D, except for CSA, they have to submit a mandatory security declaration, practically an analysis demonstrating that the economic security risks have been identified and addressed, the management of project results, technologies, equipment comply with the security requirements, and of course all the required documents, information, and results, let's say all the sensitive information and results that are produced by the projects are not subject, may not lead to exposure to, let's say, to entities not established in a member state or in other countries not associated to Horizon Europe. So, the security and sovereignty issues will be addressed in the evaluation of the impact. So here we have a dedicated impact, a new impact criterion. So it is also included in the table in the appendix that you have to take into account. And of course, there is another step in the security scrutiny. So if we believe after the security declaration of the applicant and after the evaluation carried out by the independent experts, we can still require extra security measures if we believe that it is required, considered necessary for the success of the and the security of the program. In terms of other conditions, in project collaboration, we will keep project collaboration as an important part of our work program, like we did for the previous two calls. So participants of the selected projects will be requested to cooperate in the program for topics of common interest. They will be asked to sign the collaboration agreement after the signature, of course, of the plan agreement. And in terms of the EU Rail and SNS Synergy Call, these are just the details. There will be a call in the EU Rail JU work program that will be public in the next days and will be presented later. Some important info on the support and the brokers, support and brokers platform. As mentioned, we have the FAQ. There you will find the answers to all the questions, and it will be updated regularly. For more generic Horizon Europe issues, you can visit the funding and tenders FAQ, and there you can find all the details about the UK participation and all the relevant aspects of our proposal. If you have extra questions, then we suggest first that you go to your national contact points, especially if they concern more generic questions, not very content-specific questions. So this would be your first contact point. The NCPs will be there to support you and give you guidance on your proposal. Of course, if there are questions that they cannot answer, they will come back to us. This is always the case, and then we can provide the answer in more specific questions. Now, of course, we have also you can see on your right top, let's say, form. This is what you can find on our website. So if you have a very specific question and you cannot, that the NCPs cannot address, you can always contact us, send us an email at connecting1sns@ec.europa.eu, or fill the form that is on our website. Also, in terms of standardization, because you heard that the standardization is a key priority for our program, especially as we move towards the start of alternate procedure in 2025 for the 60 standardization. It is important that if you have any questions, you can contact the Sense and Elect Research Helpers and the ETSI Research Helpers. And last but not least, the brokerage platform, the dedicated platform that we have to assist everyone to find projects, participants, to present your profile, interest, and seek for partnerships and project ideas that you can present also to other participants in the call to team up and prepare high quality proposals. So there will be this platform is already on, so you can of course publish your ideas there. But there will be also a brokerage event, most probably around end of January, and there you can present in front of everyone your let's say your ideas and how you could bring value to the SNS program. And the brokerage event will be announced shortly. So our next appointment. Of course, as mentioned, we are here always to support you. You have questions, we can answer them in the coming days, and we will make sure that if they concern, the full program, we will make sure that we will update the FAQ accordingly. But this is our big info day. The next appointment that we have that will take place on 22nd of January. It will be a 3 hours event. Again, it will be a video remote event, video conference. The similar setup where you can ask a lot of presentations, but you can also ask all your questions that you may have after the opening of the call on 16th of January. And then there's already an agenda and the registration link available. It will go public in the next days, but it is also here in the slides. Should you need to go and already check the agenda of the event. So many thanks for your attention. I'm aware that I used the slot, fully the slot, but we will be happy to take any questions now.
Actually, it was well spent the time, Pavlo, because you have answered all the questions, I have to say.
No, great.
The group of the questions were about the brokerage, if there is a brokerage platform, about the UK stakeholders, and already also Craig from UK has answered this, but there is information in the frequently asked question, as you have mentioned. And some people were asking for more information about the EU rail, but as you said, this will be handled by the EU rail JU, and will provide additional information in the future.
There will be another dedicated slot in the next info day anyway. So there will be a presentation by the EU rail JU colleagues on this specific program.
Then there was one question from Pedro Merino about if we are going to have open calls in Stream D. If you would like to repeat something there.
I think I have already mentioned during my presentation there will be no FSTP in this call. So no open calls in Stream D for the next call for call 3.
There is a question if the security issues table is already defined and where to find it.
There is no. I would like to clarify here a few because I know that I have been very fast, but due to time limitations, I have to run. So there will be a dedicated security declaration annex. So on top of the table that you can find in part A, that is, it's mandatory for all Horizon Europe calls, but this is limited to 1,000 words or characters, if I'm not mistaken. So you don't have the space to include all the plans of what we asked there. So there will be a mandatory security declaration annex that will come during the submission phase. That will download in the zip file, and you can fill and submit together with the proposal forms.
Okay, and one last question is if there is any approximate date on the brokerage event. I see that people are very interested in participating, which is really nice. I have mentioned that this will take place after the next information day, after the 22nd, and that we will announce this information in the SNS JU Office website, LinkedIn, etc. So
exactly, there will be a relevant communication activity because all interested, let's say, parties have to, to express their interest so that they reserve a slot in this event. So it is necessary that you follow the activities there and you apply for a slot in the brokerage event, which will take place around end of January, after the info day.
Perfect. And with that, I think, and I hope that we have covered all the questions that we have received. Still, we are going to copy all the questions and study them after the event. In case we have not answered one of these questions, we will do so in the frequently asked question. Pablo, thank you very much. Thank you very much to everybody for being with us here today, all the speakers and all the people, once again, being active and helping us creating this work program. Have a nice day. Thank you very much. And we will be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Good afternoon.